After weeks of tense negotiations and frustration, Congress reached a deal on New Year's Day to avoid sending the U.S. off the so-called fiscal cliff. The deal ends Bush-era tax cuts for people making more than $400,000 per year, but makes the cuts permanent for 98% of Americans, returns the payroll tax to its full amount, and puts some items on delay until 2 months from now. Several bills and exemptions were extended, including the 2008 Farm Bill, which Oklahoma U.S. Representative Frank Lucas has been working to replace with a new 5-year farm bill. Congressman Lucas is chair of the House Agriculture Committee. I spoke with him about the Farm Bill and the last-minute budget deal. Congressman Lucas, the deficit deal avoided automatic across-the-board tax hikes and budget cuts, and it received significant bipartisan support in the House and Senate. What ultimately forced approval of the measure?
I think it was the fact that on January 1, everybody's taxes in the United States went up. Every income tax rate, the capital gains rate went up, the death tax rate went up. The repeal, literally, of all of the 2001 and 2003 tax relief under the Bush administration. So every American was going to pay more taxes. It was going to have a devastating effect on the economy, and ultimately something had to be done, Dick.
Does this agreement strengthen the hand of those in the new Congress who will push for big spending cuts to bring down the deficit and debt?
I think the answer is yes, because by providing permanently the tax rates that were in place prior to January 1 for all Americans who make less than $400,000 a year, or married couples who make less than $450,000 a year, we say that 99.9% of Americans are protected permanently from tax increases. That means now, with the over the course of the next 2 months, with the automatic sequestration, that set of automatic cuts agreed to last summer, and the fact that the U.S. Treasury will no longer be able to borrow any money without additional permission, the debt ceiling issue, that means now we can focus in the next few months on cutting spending. We've solidified the tax code. We've stabilized it. Now we've got to get to the real problem, which is reducing federal spending.
And as you mentioned, the debt ceiling deadline looms large now. How do you expect that to play out in the next several weeks?
I honestly do not know. We're in a situation where this session of Congress, in many ways, Dick, will be a continuation of the previous 2 years of Congress. You've got a president who's really not all that enthused about reducing federal spending. His answer was, let's raise taxes. You've got a United States House where the perspective is, no, raising taxes won't fix the problem. That will just make the problem worse. We've got to get to the core issue, which is the federal government spends more than it takes in, spends too much. The focus now will shift exclusively to the spending side, and that debt ceiling, the president may not want to cut spending. He may not want to work with us, but he's got to have the ability to write more checks, and that expires shortly, and only Congress can raise the debt ceiling.
The fiscal cliff deal includes a bare-bones 9-month extension of the current Farm Bill. What does that extension do and not do?
Well, first of all, it says that the present safety net system created in the 2008 Farm Bill, the direct payment system and all the other things that go with that, will be in place through this crop year. So we'll extend the present programs to the end of September 2013. Unfortunately, while the safety net continues, while the 08 dairy language will continue, which means no milk cliff, no doubling in the price of milk at the grocery store, which is an important thing to not allow happen. Nonetheless, it means that we still don't have a 5-year comprehensive new farm bill. It means that the reforms, the things that need to be done to achieve savings in the nutrition title and the commodity title and the conservation title will not happen this spring or summer, but that the committees will have to start from scratch because it's a new session of Congress to craft language and hopefully have that new farm bill on the books by October 1, 2013.
You say you'll have to start from scratch. You've done so much work on the new farm bill, which would have gone into effect had it been passed. What do you think will be the time frame for getting a new farm bill hashed out?
Well, the base text that we developed in the United States House Ag Committee, which passed with a majority of both Democrats and Republicans voting for it on the Farm Bill, that would have saved $35 billion in total from all the different areas of Farm Bill spending. That base text, I suspect, is the document that we'll begin to work from. But right now, as we go into February, and it takes a couple of months in a new session of Congress with new members restructuring the committees, the subcommittees, to get organized to move. About the time that would be completed, the sequestration language, the automatic cuts kick in. The debt ceiling has to be addressed. I would say to you, Dick, it might not be a good idea to be working on Farm Bill policy while all of these other storms are brewing at the same time. So you may be looking at later in the spring or early summer now.
Senate Agriculture Committee Chair Debbie Stabenow called the new bill absolutely outrageous and says agriculture is just not a priority. Do you agree?
I think Debbie's statement reflects her frustration and mine. We had worked out together, along with the ranking member in the United States House, Colin Peterson, Democrat from Minnesota, we'd worked out a proposed extension that would have addressed many of the reforms that were in the draft of the Farm Bill that never actually got to go to the president. When it came time for Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid and the White House to sit down and sort out the final so-called fiscal cliff compromise, many of the things we'd worked on were pitched out. I think that's why Debbie's frustrated and irritated. I share those irritations, but by the same token, when you don't do things in regular order, subcommittee, full committee, floor, conference committee, then you have these kind of situations that evolve.
Chairman Lucas, do you expect the new Congress to take a more favorable view of agriculture and a farm bill that is more favorable to farm states?
I don't know that the congressional environment, the legislative environment that Debbie and I will work in is that dramatically different from the last session of Congress. It's just going to be tough. There's two big problems here that we face. Politically, the portion of the American voter population that live in rural America, that lives on farm and ranches, who are directly involved in the production and processing of food, has gotten so small, we're so few votes, that it's easy sometimes for other parts of the country to ignore us. But by the flip token, our farm bills have worked so well, our farmers and ranchers have worked so well, so effectively, we have consistently, in the lifetime of everyone listening, maintained a steady supply of the highest quality food and fiber at affordable prices. So the consumers tend to take us for granted. So if you don't have a lot of sheer vote numbers anymore in the country as a whole, and you've done such a good job that people forget what would happen if you didn't do a good job, together that makes it tough, Dick.
Congressman Frank Lucas, Chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, thanks for visiting with us.
Thank you.